Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me today for this special tutorial of a covered bench in winter. I'm going to be using all of these colors here. Full list is below in the description of this video. Let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need a large Filbert brush or a flat brush. I'm going to get it wet, take a little bit of my Phthalo Blue, sap green, get it really loaded up in my brush, and I'm going to pull a line across just a quarter of the way up from the bottom of the canvas. And it doesn't have to be straight at all. This is just going to be our land line for our trees. I'm going to get more paint on my brush and start pulling from that line in all different heights and widths. So some of them are going to be thicker, thinner. This is going to just be the start of our forest in the background. And then I'm just going to come in with a little bit of water and scumble along the base, creating more of a shadow. Okay, it's time to start coming in with some trees that are going to be more in detail and more towards the foreground. So I'm going to just start this big one here. It's kind of on an angle. And I'm going to just start tapping side to side, lifting my brush up, picking it up, and tapping each time and loading my brush as I need to. Some areas may be a little bit darker in color and some can be a little bit more faded, and in fact I really recommend having a little bit of both. So sometimes let the paint kind of run out of your brush and then wait to go and load it and start again. That way you'll get different light effects going on in your tree. So I'm going to paint a few different ones. Each time I do this, my ratio of colors I'm using in my brush is going to be different. This way, some of my trees are going to have a bit more blue in them. Some of them are going to lean more towards sap green. So I want to also recommend painting your trees on different angles. This adds a lot of character and interest to a painting. So don't make them all go straight up and down unless it's something that you really like, then go ahead and do that. But I like to create different heights and different angles to all of my trees. I think it just makes it more fun to look at. So I'm going to continue along here. Sometimes I'm going to use a little bit more blue, like I said, and even a little bit of black if you want. You can add a bit of black in with the Phthalo Blue and the sap green. That also gets a lot of depth in your trees and creates those soft gray tones and mid-tones. So now you can see without washing my brush off, I just went right into my white, and I'm going to add the snow, the white, onto the wet paint underneath. This way I'm picking up those colors and they're naturally creating different pastel tones and shades of the green and the blue and little bits of gray. I think this is just such a pretty way to paint your trees and to add your snow. But if your paint dries really quickly and you're unable to achieve that, that doesn't matter. You can make the colors again if you want. This is just a lot easier. And if you're a quick painter like me, you won't have any trouble at all doing this. I'm going to come in on the side and add a tree here that I didn't have before. So you can paint trees just with white. You don't have to have a darker color underneath. That is also a nice way to create a winter scene and some winter snow-covered trees, just going straight in with white. I'm going to cut in and around the tree trunk here and really start to brighten up the foreground. So just pulling my titanium white across and at the base of all those other trees in the forest. And again, just pulling back and forth gently with that white. As it works out of my brush, I'm able to scumble over a thin, transparent layer of white at the base of the trees. I like that look. Kind of looks a little bit misty in there. Now I'm going to come in and reload my brush and start adding the snow on the rest of the trees here. I'll then start coming in with more trees in the middle where we don't have any yet, using a little bit more blue. So you're going to see how the color and temperature starts to change, and it's really a lot of fun to make your trees different colors. So kind of take that and incorporate it into your paintings. Whatever season that you happen to be painting, always change it up just a little bit with your colors. So you can tint your blacks, your greens, whatever colors your trees are, add a little bit of something else, and I guarantee you're really going to add a little bit more life and interest to your paintings, and you're also going to have more fun painting if you do that. Okay, so now we've got a really nice balance of minty, frosty, wintry colors on our trees. And I'm going to incorporate those colors down below here in the foreground. So a little bit of that frosty, icy blue, I'll add that to the foreground. I'm also going to start using a little bit of light ultramarine blue or light blue violet. If you don't have this color, you can make it by taking cobalt blue and adding titanium white. Or you can use ultramarine blue and add a bit of white. The temperature and hue will change slightly depending on what white you use, whether you use a cool white or a warm white. I'm going to start coming in now with that light ultramarine blue and some titanium white. So a little scoop of each and right back onto the canvas without blending it on the palette first. This way I get more of a natural look, and I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. I don't want the entire foreground to be all the same color. The idea is to have a little bit of all the colors work together somehow in the foreground. Even that neon orange that I'll be adding a little bit later on. And a little bit of that red. I'll be incorporating that in the snow and the light effects. So I'm just doing a very thin scumble of that light blue violet at the base of the trees in the background there, and I think that looks really pretty. It adds just a little bit of magic to these paintings, I think, when you add a little bit of a filter over some of the areas in the background. And I'm going to come in straight away here with my titanium white and just a little bit of that neon orange. That gives us that really pretty peachy coral color. So again, not over blending, not adding it everywhere, just adding it in and around, especially where I've got that light blue violet. I like the way those two colors look together. They're really complementary. So I'll kind of use that as a guide to know where I want to add that color. And especially around the tree. First we've got the shadow from the tree, but then the light around that shadow all around the tree is going to be coming from the pretty twinkling lights on that tree later on that we'll be adding. Okay, so after adding those peachy tones in the foreground, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some more highlights and a few more layers of snow and frost to the trees. So my brush is not saturated. I want it to be a thin amount of paint I'm using and quite dry. And then I'm going to do a thin scumble to make it look like it's frosty and sort of foggy or hazy out in the background. Maybe it'll make it look like it's snowing a little bit too. We will be adding some snow later on with a toothbrush, and we'll do a snow spray effect using that toothbrush, which is really effective, so stay tuned for that. But I'm just going to kind of go loosely in and around over part of the tree sometimes. I don't want to press too hard on the trees though with my brush, just in case I pick up some white or wet white paint there. And now I'm going to come in with my oval mop brush, my 1-inch oval mop brush, and you can see how beautiful the foliage looks. This brush is just one of my favorite brushes I like to use for creating branches and foliage and moss. So this, I'm just using this to change up some of the textures and branches in the trees. I want to have a few different trees going on back there, some spruce, evergreen, fir, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'll scumble out the remainder of the paint again, adding a little bit of a transparent filter. I'm going to add a little bit more snow to this dominant tree here, more in the foreground, that we're going to be having lights and a few ornaments on later on. And I want to encourage you guys to feel free to add your own twist to this painting. Add red ornaments if you want. That would look really pretty. That would complement the red bench that we've got off to the left coming up here pretty soon. So I'm just going to finish adding a little bit more snow and frost highlights to these trees, and then I'll be switching over to another brush and we'll start painting our bench. Okay, it's time to start painting our bench. For the bench, you're going to need black and scarlet red, or any color that you choose to paint your bench in. I'm going to use a number 11 flat brush here, and I'm working on a larger canvas, so that's why I've got a larger brush I'm using. I'm going to pull a line on an angle about 1/2 inch in width, and then I'm going to do a few other lines on the side on an angle. And then I'm going to do another line that's going to be thinner than this, just below this one, leaving a little space with the background showing through. I'm not too concerned about making perfect lines and making everything look like a photo or realistic. That's not my style of art, and I do like to freehand all of my paintings. If you guys feel more comfortable sketching yours out first, by all means go ahead. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be more of a loose painter and free painter like me, then have no fear and just go ahead and freehand it. Anything that you don't like about it, if it doesn't look right, you can always take it off, paint over it, or cover it up with a little bit of snow. So I like to use snow for a little bit of a camouflage on things in my paintings that I don't like. Of course, only my winter paintings, but I think that it looks kind of nice when you loosen up in your paintings and just feel a little bit more carefree. It comes across in your paintings too, and a looser painter is a happier one. I find over the years, sketching for me kind of just took the freedom and the creativity away. So it just, in case you guys are wondering why I don't sketch first, it's just a freedom thing for me. It feels more fun, and I am kind of sketching it out. I'm just using a paintbrush to do it. So I'm going to follow those lines. Everything's going to be on an angle, right? It's slanted because of how the angle of the bench. And then I'm just going to loosely with a flat brush first make curvy lines for the armrests on either side, and make an oval for the bottom of the legs. And then I'm going to cover the legs with snow over top, and then I'll add some shadows underneath and off to the side. The bench is going to be covered in snow, so you don't need to paint it solid red and black first, though you can if you want, just to help figure out where you need to put your snow. If that helps you a little bit, you might want to do that first. And then I'm just going to go over and use a liner brush or a round brush. I recommend either or, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can also use a small Filbert brush for this. This is just something smaller like this is going to help you do the smaller and finer lines and a little bit more scrolled detail work. I like curly, swirly scrolls for my arms and legs, and certain things in my paintings. When I'm working on houses and structures, I like to add that. That's just kind of my thing. I think it looks really pretty. And then I'm going to go over all of it and add a thin layer of white for the snow. Now, something that you might want to do is, before you add straight white for your snow, you might want to add a little bit of the light blue violet for a shadow first, and then add white over top of that with just a hint of that light blue violet showing. That'll look really pretty and give you a soft shadow that's going to look nice and also be complementary to the light peachy highlight that we're going to add lastly on the snow. I'm going to come inside the top of the bench now and add my Scarlet Red without covering up all of that black and red. We need both, right? You need that shadow and that deep dark base to really make the color stand out. So I'm just coming in carefully using my little round brush, and I believe this one's a number 2. But like I said, depending on what size of canvas that you're painting on, choose your brushes according to the size. Okay, now that I've got the basic shape and style of bench that I want, I'm going to take my flat brush again and pick up my colors I want to use for the first base of my snow. I'll have a combination of blues and white, so you can use your phthalo blue, you can use the blue violet. I like the blue violet better for my first base and for my shadow. I think I mentioned that just a few minutes ago earlier. And then I'll be coming in over top in long strips, pulling with my titanium white. I'm going to go over and just kind of in between here and then between the scroll and have my snow a little bit messy and kind of hanging off the edge on the top and on the seat, the bench itself. I'm going to come in and add some snow and white at the base of the legs, and that's really going to make the bench look 3D, right? It's going to make it look like it's in and that snow is all around it, and will also create an instant shadow. But to add more of a shadow, I'll be making it a little bit darker underneath the bench, and I'll be using some gray and maybe a little bit of blue as well. I'm going to just load my brush up, drag lightly, not pushing hard at all. This way I get that natural heavy snow layer snow look, and it's kind of bumpy and kind of wiggly and messy looking, and you definitely want to have that. Snow's really not neat and tidy. So you don't have to be overly careful with this painting, and that's what I really love about working on winter landscapes. I think they're so beginner friendly because you can be messy with applying your snow, and it always looks so pretty. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm just going to spend a few more minutes here adding snow highlights, shadows, details, switching over from my flat brush to my round brush, whatever I need to get in and around all these shapes and get the details in. I want to go and add a little bit more of a shadow underneath. Before I do that, I'll add more bright white. And again, I'm using titanium white. It's a bright, cool white. It's the brightest white. You can easily change the temperature of that as well by tinting it with a little bit of warm yellow or orange or red. And then I'm going to come in and add a little bit of gray and blue. Very, very light mixture though. You don't want it to be too dark for the shadow underneath. I'll also come around the front and the base of the bench with a little bit of my neon orange and white, that really pretty soft peachy color that I think looks so nice with the light blue violet. And then I'm going to be taking my toothbrush and I'll show you guys how to make some really natural looking snow. So you want to dunk your toothbrush in the water. You want to get it quite wet and then gently scrub it into whatever color you want for your snow. And I'm just using straight white here. And then I'm going to spray, aim, and flick all over the canvas to make some of the snowflakes look a little bit more like a splatter and have thicker, chunkier looking bits of snow. And then other areas, it'll be a fine mist. So you'll see me do a combination of kind of just flicking and then spraying. Back over to my round brush, I'm going to mix white with neon yellow warm. I'll add that in the list below this video in the description box. And I'm going to add little dabs and dots all over the tree for lights and ornaments. They don't all have to be the same widths. Just have fun and be loose and just go for it. You don't have to try to make everything in your painting super detailed, okay? So just little dots and dabs, let the brush and the colors do the work for you. A round brush I think is best for this. I know some people use Q-tips because the end is nice and round, so be creative, use whatever you have if you don't have a round brush. And then I'm just going to do little pulls and flicks off of some of those ornaments and the branches to make it look maybe like tinsel or icicles. I'm also going to add little hints of that peachy color to part of the snow on the bench, as well as the base of the tree and areas here and there in the foreground, so that I'm tying all the colors together and the painting has just a really nice glow about it where everything is kind of, all the colors are in harmony together. And it also gives us a nice balance of warmth and coolness, light and shadow, which is really an important part of learning to paint and how to bring all your paintings together. Okay, after finishing up those last details on the bench, I'm gonna switch over to another large Filbert brush. Use any blending brush that you want, and we're gonna apply our next thin transparent layer just with a little bit of white. I picked up a little bit of the neon yellow warm off of the tree. I don't mind. I think it looks kind of dreamy and pretty and blurry like, so I'm gonna just kind of go with that and let that look blurry. I'm not going to try and fix that. I think it's pretty. I'm going to also go over some areas of the tree here, scumbling, twirling my brush around to give it more of a glow, so those lights on the tree look hazy. And then I'm going to brush a little bit over the base of the tree and down in the foreground. The next thing I want to do is dab a little bit of white with my round brush inside some of the balls and the lights on the tree. And then I'll make a few little dabs in like a garland type of shape. So I'm going to dab, dab, dab and make it look like little scoops, but in little dabs for those garlands. And then scumble around some of the colors on my palette around the tree. So here I've got a little bit of my Phthalo Blue as a dry brush, a little bit of green, dry brushing it around, just adding a filter over top of where I have lots of white, and then it'll dry in a very pretty soft pastel shade. I'm going to do that with all the colors, so you'll see me use a little bit of my red with white. I'll use a little bit of my blue violet, and so on and so forth. And then I'll also incorporate all of those colors at the base of the tree and around on the snow and by the bench here and there. Feel free to add as much color or as little as you like. It's completely up to you guys. So I think this winter painting is looking pretty magical, and I think it's because of all these soft little touches of pastel colors that I added under the tree and in the tree. I love this bright red bench. I think that this is kind of a simple painting. It's very cozy looking, even though it's snowy and it's winter and cold. There's a nice warmth about it, a comfort about it, and there's lots of things you can add to this painting, or you could leave it as simple as it is here. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do with this and seeing your versions of it on our Facebook group, so be sure to check out the links below and join that. I want to wish you guys a wonderful season, happy painting. If you learned a lot and liked this video and like watching my videos, leave a comment below, subscribe for more, and give this video a like, of course. Thanks so much. I'll see you all soon. Bye.